Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Giving Tuesday is all about celebrating generosity.
It's a time for giving and being thankful.
And Boise State Public Radio needs your help in giving back.
Let me tell you, the greatest gifts that anybody can give are not those presents you buy.
Nominate your favorite local nonprofit for a chance to win $1,000 in on-air messaging. To learn more, visit us online at boisestatepublicradio.org before Tuesday, December 2nd.
More Idaho Matters right now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Cadet. Here is a startling statistic. The Secretary of State's office reports that in 2023 alone, more than 10,000 people gave almost $8 million to 181 PACs in Idaho. Now, the tactic of using money to influence Idaho politics has exploded, and it's having an impact on both who gets elected and the legislative issues that affect our day-to-day lives. The City Club of Boise is diving into this issue at their Money in Idaho Politics Forum tomorrow in Boise. And Phil McGrain, Idaho's Secretary of State, and Chuck Winder, the former Idaho State Pro Tem, are joining us today for a preview. I want to welcome both of you to the program.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion.
You know, Gemma, I always love chatting with you, so it's great to be here.
It's good to have both of you here. So, Phil, let me start with you. Is it fair to say the amount of money being spent in Idaho elections has been going up dramatically over recent years?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things we'll be talking about. We're tracking more of it than we ever have before. So I think there's a heightened focus on transparency and a lot of support from the legislature on that front. But also with more people coming to Idaho, we're seeing more money come to the state as well, whether that's people moving here or just interest from out-of-state organizations paying much closer attention to local Idaho races, especially our legislative races.
Senator, you were in the Senate, the Idaho Senate, for 16 years. How have things changed, not over that time, but since then, when it comes to how much money is spent on campaigns here in the state?
Well, I think, that 16 or even the last, 10 years have really changed the way money is spent. A typical legislative race in Idaho maybe would cost, $30,000, maybe $40,000. Now they're up over 100,000 in contested races. And I think, one of the biggest things we've seen, and Secretary mentioned that briefly, and that is all the out-of-state money that's coming here. And all of a sudden, people around the country are realizing they can have a huge impact in Idaho with $100,000, which might cost them $1 million to $10 million in a more populated state. So they focused on Idaho. They're trying to make it, I believe, more conservative in that approach, and they're spending a lot more money in Idaho than they ever have before.
Senator, you've said in the past that you had an uphill battle in your last primary against all the out-of-state money that was spent on the 2024 primary election. Can you take us back and talk a little bit about how it made such a difference in that election?
Well, I think, the money we know for sure, that came in was over $100,000 in my district. I was targeted by a group and that was basically appeared to be funded by the marijuana industry from out of state, again, working towards legalization. But I think what's going on in Idaho is they've targeted myself, they targeted Mike Moyle as the Speaker of the House. They've tried to target leadership that's been opposed to their positions on certain issues, but they can spend fewer dollars here and make a big change, and where they can't do that in other states.
Phil, for folks who may not understand the term dark money, can you explain what dark money is and then how it does impact elections?
Sure. I think one of the things for where I sit, so as Secretary of State, one of my roles is to oversee campaign finance in the state, as well as to oversee lobbyist registration and disclosure. So our focus is on Sunshine. We have an entire website dedicated to tracking all the money. So when the former pro tems talks about all that money that came in, I just want to echo part of his experience is seeing a lot of money pour in. So people use the term dark money for a wide variety of things. I'll say from where I sit,
Mm-hmm.
most of it's not dark because you can see it. Part of what we'll be sharing with City Club tomorrow is to highlight some of the money that we're seeing come in. I think for voters, you don't know where the sources are other than looking at like the mailer that came in and seeing who it was paid for by. But often the names of those organizations, it might have Idaho in the name, but could be based in Virginia. And so we're just seeing a big influx. And I think one of the things really to highlight, because I think that Chuck's experience really is the poster child of all of this, is there are some organizations spending a ton of money, and he's exactly right. The typical legislative race is about $30,000 to $40,000. That's what we've seen in the past, and even still, many of our races still look like that. But we had numerous races in the 2024 primary cycle that where over $100,000 was spent just in opposition against candidates. And Senator Winter's race was a perfect example of that. He was outspent. The money he raised for his campaign was outspent by out-of-state groups in attack ads in that race. And that's one of the big changes we're seeing, especially when you take a race that's not as high profile as, say, the Speaker of the House or the pro tem. As you get down further, that can have an even bigger impact. And so I
Mm-hmm.
will say, talking to legislators, a lot of people are trying to understand what's happening and, what does the state look like moving forward when it comes to some of these campaign finance rules?
Well, and you
Yeah.
talk about how we're seeing money, spent even on on smaller campaigns. I mean, Phil, we've seen this even at the very, very local level with school board elections here in Idaho. I mean, does that say something about how some organizations maybe potentially want to try to control who is and is not in politics?
I think one of the big things that's interesting is just seeing more money. I think the perspective from folks in other states is different. I think what Senator Winter mentioned, money goes a long way here in Idaho compared to other places. And so we are seeing it in city council races and certainly in mayoral races, as you mentioned, Gemma, in school district races. I'll say, even just locally, though, maybe the most noteworthy was last May. There was a race for Eagle Sewer District where three candidates all spent over $2,000 running for the Eagle Sewer District Board. And that is not a race I'm typically tracking when it comes to campaign finance, but it
Hmm.
just shows the increase and influx of money in Idaho politics.
So, Senator, could you
Yeah.
talk to us about go? Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, the secretary defined dark money properly. One of the good things that's happened, the legislature, I think, is finally realizing that this outside money, even though it's not dark money because we make them report it now, that's having a huge impact uh, in these races. And I think that people need to be aware of that. I think that's one of the reasons we've tried to make some of the sunshine requirements that we have is to make sure that
Hmm.
people are aware that this isn't your neighbor across the street, supporting opposition against someone. It's someone that's in Virginia or in California or wherever they might be, Texas. And I think that's an important distinction that we have to make in this process. It's not really dark money. We want the public to know who is financing the elections, who is providing the opposition. And one of the things that I realized, uh, they'll put about three layers sometimes of connection or interconnection of different groups. They'll say they're not related, but when you really dig down into the money and where it comes from, it's coming from the same places, but they camouflage it pretty well sometimes.
So both of you have mentioned Idaho's sunshine laws. So Phil, my understanding is that you did help spearhead a campaign finance reform bill last year to make changes to finance and to lobbying and to update our state's sunshine laws. So what changes were made? And in your opinion, what still needs to be done to make sure that our system here in Idaho, when we're looking at campaign finance, like what can still be done?
Yes, Gemma, you're right. Last year, my top priority in the legislative session, beyond just a voter guide and voter information, was campaign finance reform. And we had four different bills that were proposed. It was a big working project. And I would definitely give a shout out to Speaker Moyle. This has become a priority for him. I think, in particular, his experience with the money in these races has shined a lot of light on this issue, just like Senator Winder was mentioning. Unfortunately, though, the campaign finance reform bills did not pass last session. And so hopefully we'll be back at it again. I think this next primary cycle we'll see even more money and it will highlight it for more legislators. I mean, the biggest challenge is Idaho's sunshine laws were a citizens' initiative from the 1970s. And I like to tell the legislature they read like a citizens' initiative from the 1970s. A lot has changed in politics and the money in politics since the 70s. So it's time for us to really to update and reform some of that. We did make changes to our lobbying requirements last year to require more disclosure for lobbying money spent, especially lobbying money that's targeting voters and just the public. And so that was a big step in the right direction. And hopefully we can get the rest of the way there, because nowadays, with text messaging, with social media, with all sorts of modern tools, we're seeing a lot more sophistication, not just in the campaign tactics, but how the money is being used and the messages are being delivered. And I think you talk to average voters, I think if you talk to anybody in Senator Winder's district, they would tell you they experienced it, not just the barrage of mailings, but all the other sources that were impacting them. And it's making it harder, too, for many of the legislators to focus on their business here in the State House when it's so hard when you have so much noise happening back in your home district and you're trying to respond to your constituents because of this out-of-state money.
So both of you have mentioned out-of-state money and even these out-of-state PACs. So Senator, could you talk to us more about requiring national PACs to actually have to register here in Idaho and why that was an important change to make for our system here in the state?
Well, again, I think, this whole area, reporting and disclosure is difficult because of First Amendment rights and kind of traditions in our electoral process. But I think as we, again, have these national PACs come in and try and work and influence our elections, we need to know who they are. We need to know, how they're spending their money. There need to be some time restrictions on when they have to report those funds. And so I think that's really what we're trying to do, is just say, you're not going to stop the money probably, but I think you can let the public know where the money's coming from, who's doing it, and kind of what their motives are, because it's very difficult for a candidate in Idaho to raise that kind of money. I was fortunate because I was a pro tem and the speaker's a speaker. You can raise more money than an average legislator can, but uh, they had so much impact in my district. They had people walking door to door. They had mailers, 2 or 3 mailers a day going on for the last probably 30 days of that primary. And it had, I think, a huge impact on my district that was redistricted. And probably 30 to 40% of the people in my district now had not lived here for more than 3 to 5 years. That's also had a huge impact on it. So it's not just money. It's how the primary system works and how the districts are set up have an impact on that also.
So I have less than 2 minutes left with both of you, and I do want to quickly get to the City Club Forum tomorrow. So let me start with you, Phil. What are you hoping that people take away from this conversation?
I hope that tomorrow's City Club meeting should be good in terms of just us having a conversation about what's happening. I think it's good for anybody there to see the numbers that are coming out. I think exactly what Senator Winder mentioned. There is just more money coming in. It's coming from different sources. There's no new people in Idaho. And so us having a dialogue about it, I think we've started that with the legislature last year, and continuing it more broadly into the public is a good thing. And I'm excited for the conversation.
And what about you, Senator? What are you hoping that the big takeaway is for folks who are coming to this event tomorrow?
Well, I think just making them more aware of what's going on, hopefully getting them engaged in the process and coming up with ways to deal with some of this. Um, you've got a broad membership in the club, in the city club, and then also the listeners that listen, and you can have an impact on this, by working working with your local legislators.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for taking time to speak with us today. We've been talking with Phil McGray, Idaho Secretary of State, and Chuck Winder, the former Idaho State Pro Tem, about the City Club of Boise's upcoming Money in Idaho Politics Forum that will be tomorrow in Boise. And you can find out more about campaign donations here in Idaho at Sunshine, Idaho's campaign finance system website. And we'll make sure we put a link on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. The horse has a way to carry the sleigh for the wide and drift.
Gemma, isn't that a song from one of my very favorite Peanut specials?
Yeah, George, it is. It's from a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. Now, remember, this is where the gang takes a trip to have Thanksgiving dinner with Charlie's grandma.
It's a lot like so many folks in Idaho who travel to see family during Thanksgiving or the Christmas holiday.
So, George, if you're traveling this holiday season around Idaho, keep your eyes open for possible stories for our Idaho 44 series.
That's right. You're gathering stories from all of Idaho's 44 counties.
Just remember, folks, if you're traveling over the holidays and maybe you see a story idea somewhere, send us a quick email. Just go to idahomatters@boisestate.edu.
And can it be any kind of story?
It can be anything.
So cool. Can I tell you, I just love Charlie Brown.
I mean, who doesn't, George?
Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. The horse has a way to carry the sleigh for the wide and drifting snow. Over the river and through the woods, oh how the wind does blow. It stings the toes and bites the nose. Over the ground we go.